Hello and welcome to Chapter 5, Section 5. This is fractions to decimals. This is converting one to the other. When you're converting, it's easiest if your denominator is something that is easily 10, 100, or 1,000. Equals 10 or 100 or 1,000. Because 2 over 10 equals 0.2 and 14 over 100 equals 0.14 and 372 over 1,000 equals 0.372. And these are automatic conversions and they keep going like this. And ideally what we want to do is, in order to do this the easy way, we want to get our denominators to 10 or 100 or 1,000. If we've got denominators that easily divide into 10, 100, and 1,000, then we can make them easy by making equivalent fractions. For example, I know that 2 goes into 10 just by multiplying by 5. And if I multiply both the top and the bottom by 5, I have 5/10, which is the same as 5/10. I also know that 5 goes into 10. So I can also, times 2, easily turn this into a decimal. Both 4 and 20 and 25, let's say 17/25 and 3/8. 4, 20, and 25, these all go into 100. And so here we're going to multiply 4 times 25, and that's going to give us a denominator of 100 and a numerator of 75, and that is 0.75. 20 times 5 is 100. So 17 times 5, and here I got to do a little math, is 85. So that's going to give us 0.85. 25 also goes into 100 times 4 times 4. Oh, and I got 17 again. Apparently that's a good number today. 268, which gives us 0.68. 8 is an interesting one. 8 is the one they like to use on the tests because 8 goes into 1,000 and most people don't remember that. So if you can remember that 8 times 125 is 1,000, then awesome. Then you can just do this the easy way. 3 times 5 is 15, 1,000. 6 and 1 is 7, and 3. So that's going to equal 0.375. That's not one I expect you to remember. I would, however, love it if you would recognize these because these are common and they will help make your homework go faster. If you've got numbers that don't go easily into 10, 100, or 1,000, and we've got a few. So here we have fractions with denominators that don't easily go into 10, 100, or 1,000. And unfortunately, without memorizing them, your best bet is long division. So now that we've got long division with decimals under our belt, we're going to decide we do 1 divided by 3. So this is the thing that we're breaking up. So this is the thing that goes underneath, and 3 goes on the outside. And we're going to annex ourselves a couple of zeros and stick that decimal there. Now 3 does not go into 1, we get that. But 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9, we subtract, we get 1, we bring down our 0. And look, we've got a 10 again. 3 goes into 10 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9, we subtract, we get a 1, we can annex another 0. And look, we've got a 10 again. This is what we call a repeating decimal. A repeating decimal is where you either have the same number over and over, or you have the same series of numbers over and over again. And 1/3 is going to give you 0.3333 every time. Interestingly enough, 2/3 is going to give you 0.66666, which rounds to 0.667, just so you know. But those are two that I would love it if you would just memorize, because that will make your life easier. If you've got 1/3 or 2/3. Now sixths, I don't ever remember sixths. And there are too many variations of 6. So if we've got 5/6, we're going to stick 5 under here and 6 out here, 0.00. Let's give it another one. And we're going to stick our decimal here. And 6 goes into 50 8 times. 6 times 8 is 48. We're going to subtract. We get 2. We bring down the 0. 6 times 20. Nope, 6 goes into 23 times. 6 times 3 is 18. We subtract, we get 20. 6 goes, oh, look, we've got 1. There's our repeat. And it's going to keep going and going. So 5/6 is 0.8333333. And usually it'll ask us to round off. When we round off to the nearest, say, hundredth, we're going to find that hundredth. We're going to look next door. We're going to see if this number makes this number round up or stay the same. So this will end up being 0.83. Now, sevenths are evil, if you remember. Sevens never end. Sevens can be that way. So when you're turning sevens into a decimal, you're also going to have to figure out which number you have to round off to. Okay? So this section is going to give you a lot of fractions with a lot of different denominators. First, see if you can make it, through multiplication, make it into a 10, 100, or 1,000, because that's the easiest way to do this. If it doesn't, you get a long division problem, and you're going to get a lot of practice in long division, but they're not hard, and they give you a round off number that happens relatively quickly. So what I'm going to ask you to do is try out these two, both -2/5 and 5/11, and do these problems, push pause, do the problems yourself, and then when you come back, we can do them together and you can check your work and make sure that you're good at this, okay? See you soon. Okay, so we've got -2 divided by 5. So the 2 is going to go on the inside and the 5 is going to go on the outside because it's 2 divided by 5. And we're going to put our decimal here in 0, 0. And I'm going to stick that negative sign right up there so that I don't forget it. And my decimal. 5 goes into 20 4 times. 4 times 5 is 20. Subtract and check it out. I'm already done. Then we have 5/11. So we're going to do 5 divided by 11. And I'm going to annex a couple of zeros. 11 goes into 50 4 times. 4 times 11 is 44, and I subtract, I have 6, I bring down my 0. 11 goes into 60 5 times. 5 times 11 is 55, I subtract, I get a 5, I bring down a 0. 11 goes into 50 4 times. 4 times 11 is 44, I subtract, I get a 6, I bring down a 0. 11 goes into 60 5 times. Do you see how this is becoming my repeating decimal here? So I'm hoping that we're going to round this off to the nearest hundredth or thousandth, and we're going to pick one of these and we're going to look next door and we're going to round it off. So if we had to round to the nearest tenth, I would look next door and this would stay the same and this would be 0.45. And if I had to round off to the nearest hundredth, I would look next door and this would go up 1 and it would be 0.455, depending, but you get the idea. The next section is section B, and that's on page 297 of your textbook. And it starts by talking about rounding things off in problem solving. And we've already covered rounding. And I've done it a couple of times for you here. Go back and find it if you need it, because it's going to give you a few problems and it's just going to say, here's a decimal number, and round to the nearest tenth or hundredth or whatever. And that will also be on your test, so please make sure that's obvious. Then it asks us to work with ratios and treat ratios like they're fractions and convert them to decimal notation. For example, the example number 12 that is on the bottom of page 297, you've got a car that drives 457 miles, and you just filled that up with 16.4 gallons of gas. And the question is, how many miles per gallon does it get? Well, this is a long division problem. This is 457 divided by 16.4. So we are going to make some room. 457 divided by 16.4, because I can write 0.4. I've got a decimal in here and I don't get to have it here. I'm going to move it over 1, which means I'm going to move my imaginary decimal point over 1 here, and I'm going to put it up there. So now this is all set, and it asks for the nearest tenth. And if I go to the nearest tenth, that means I have to look next door. So I'm going to have to divide to the nearest hundredth in order to properly round this off. So how many times does 164 go into 457? I'm going to say 3 times as a guess. 3 times 4 is 12. 3 times 18, 1 is 19. 3 and 1 is 4, and that's too many. So we're going to go down to 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 2 times 6 is 12. 2 and 1 is 3, and I'm going to subtract 5, 4, 17, 9, 2, 1, and I'm going to bring back down that 0. 164 goes into 1290. Let's guess 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 6 is 42, 44, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Subtract 8, 10, 2, 4, 1. I'm going to bring down my 0. We're going to guess 8 times here. 8 times 4 is 32. 8 times 6, 48, 51. 8 and 5 is 13. Subtract. 10 is 8. 0, 108. 164 goes into 1,000, probably 6 times. 6 times 4 is 24. 36, 38. 6, 7, 8, 9, subtract 6, 9, 17, 9. And I've got a remainder of 96. So I've got enough numbers here so that I know that this digit rounds up 1. So the answer to the question, how many miles per gallon, is 27.9 miles per gallon. So it's asking us to be able to set up a ratio, which means put miles per gallon so that you've got miles per gallon. Set the problem up correctly, just like it's worded. Be able to take this and make this setup, make this work, and round it correctly. If it asks for to the nearest hundredth, you've got to go to the nearest thousandth so you can look next door, so you can round off that hundredth. So it's not much different than what you were doing. It's just a lot of steps, but it should be pretty straightforward. There are additional examples on page 298, examples 13 and 14, and 14's got averages again. We know we love those. So if you're still having trouble with those, look through the book and walk through those problems with them. See the problem, try the problem, then see what they do to work the problem out, and that can help you keep your steps straight. Then we're on to red letter C on page 299, and here we are looking at problems where there are both fractions and decimals.